What's up, everybody, and welcome to Mentors Collective. If you're listening to this podcast today and you have a business and you eventually one day want to get funding for that business, this one's going to be an awesome episode for you to learn how to do that, especially if you are an underrepresented category, including, women, LGBTQ community, or anyone else that might fit in that category. So in this episode, I've got a very special guest. Katie Neilson is the co-founder and president of Assure, the leading provider of special purpose vehicles, SPVs, and they're transforming how venture capital investment is structured and administered. And in this episode, she's going to join me to talk about what SPVs are and how you can get funding for your company from like-minded investors. So without further ado, I want to welcome you, Katie, and sorry, I butchered the LGBTQ thing coming in.
That's okay. That's okay. Thank you so much for having me. Happy to be here.
And I'm excited to discuss this with you. This has been a topic of conversation between me and my co-founder for a long time. So hopefully I'm going to learn some things in this conversation as well. And that's what this is about. Hopefully we can add some value to anyone listening that might be interested in acquiring funding and getting aligned with like-minded investors. So thank you for sharing your time. And Katie, just to kind of kick things off, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, how you became kind of an expert in funding in SPVs. Tell us your story.
Okay. So my background is in marketing and operations. I did that for about 5 years and then took a break to be a stay-at-home mom for about 10 years. In 2012, my co-founder, who was also my husband, had the industry expertise, the venture capital experience, private equity experience, and he was working on starting a business. And in 2012, this business started to progress. And at that time, I just said, I'm going to jump in and help you to make sure that we can get paid. That was the most important thing at that time. So I started doing the back office work for Assure, and he'd been in the industry for about 7 years prior to that, and I've always been interested in business. I always was interested in what he was doing, and so we would have conversations all the time. So I knew the players in Utah, and I knew some of the players that he had brought money in from outside of Utah as well. So when that started, at first, Assure looked pretty different. We did due diligence for the SBA, and we did investor relations for a couple funds. And in 2013, angelists cold callers, and asked us if we could set up funds in bulk. And we didn't really know exactly what that meant, but basically what they were trying to say is, can you do a fund that is high volume, for a low cost, affordable cost, and fast. And at that point, we had the expertise, all the pieces. We just needed to figure out how to do that. And so we just dove in, and we actually did about 60 deals that first year, within actually from August to December, and first 50 to 60 SPVs closed, and we figured out how to replicate that. And I built the back office to Assure and worked on the processes and systems that could be have the longevity. These were vehicles that were end-to-end vehicles, which is a little bit different than some of the other providers out in the ecosystem. We have from the formation of an SPV through the exit of an SPV. So after the entity funds the portfolio company or the asset, there's still some activity that needs to happen after that fact. And after that event. And so we have a life cycle from the formation to the exit, and we have all of the expertise that is needed in-house, which is tax, legal, accounting, compliance, and banking. So that's another aspect that is unique. So I have gotten my experience the old-fashioned way by just diving in and figuring it out, and building and growing a company.
Cool. And kudos to you for having a marriage and a business partnership. I always admire that so much when I see it. It must be complicated, but definitely an admiration. And if it works, that's such an incredible thing.
Well, I think it works pretty good because we have different strengths. He is a visionary and strategy, likes to work high level, and I am more the detail oriented person. So when it comes to figuring out what we're going to sell and where we should be going, that's him, and then I go in and execute. So it works quite well when we have those roles clearly defined.
Sounds a lot like me and my business partner. I'm definitely the husband, and you're definitely Scott. It's funny, we did the DISC personality assessment over the past 2 days, just to kind of see where we are. And it makes a lot of sense. And that's where the best partnerships are, right? You need to complement each other. Except me and him are not married. We lived together for 2 years, and that was hard enough. Again, kudos to you guys.
Thank you.
So talk to me a little bit about SPVs. You mentioned that a couple of times. What is an SPV? Why are they important? And why do you guys focus on them in your company?
Sure. There's a couple ways to get funding to founders to invest into founders or into other assets. And one of those is a venture fund. And another one is a special purpose vehicle. Special purpose vehicles is a legal entity used specifically to pool investors' money together and to invest into some type of financial asset, whether it is a convertible note, a safe, preferred or common stock of a corporation, or any other asset that appreciates. And so SPVs are a very flexible tool, entity that can be used to facilitate the capital raising for different opportunities out there. SPVs, are different than VC funds. They typically you have VC funds are blind pool. Blind pool means that you give someone your money and they take it and invest into whatever their thesis is, their fund is investing into. And so you don't have the opportunity as an investor to really choose your portfolio, that you're trusting that VC fund manager to do that. With a SPV, usually what you see is investors investing smaller check sizes and with different groups, different angel groups, different syndicates, different investment groups. And they have the opportunity to pick and choose what they would like to invest into. The other thing that's different is with the VC fund, it's large check sizes. SPV funds, it's smaller check sizes pooled together usually to create one line item on the cap table. Another thing that's different about VC funds versus SPVs, VC funds have continual activity. They call the capital, and then they make investments continually throughout their life cycle. SPV funds don't do that. They have, you pull all the money together at one time and you're investing into the single asset. And so there is not a lot of ongoing activity until there's an event, either like a convertible note that converts or a merger or acquisition, any type of event that would affect that company and affect the ownership of that company, then that's where there's activity. So it kind of sleeps for a little while and then it wakes up whenever those activities come back.
Very cool. And over the past couple of years, we've all heard the term SPAC thrown around a lot in the stock market investing. Does that differ from SPVs, and how so?
Yeah. So a SPAC is a special purpose acquisition company. So it is a company set up for the purpose of creating a larger company. So they're pooling a couple companies together to create a larger company. And what happens with a SPAC is that investors put in money to this SPAC, and then they have to find the companies to put into that SPAC within a certain time frame, or then the money goes back to the investors. So it is different than an SPV. We have done a lot of it's kind of similar to going public in a way, but it's a more cost-effective way of going public. And so we see that with some of the funds that people have invested in. So some of our SPVs have been invested into companies or assets. Well, companies. It mostly happens for companies here. Invested into companies that get put into a SPAC. And so we have to deal with some of those transaction-based items for that SPV that is put into that SPAC. So it is different.
Okay, very cool. That's definitely helpful. And one of the topics that you've become obsessed with or interested in over your career has been securing funding for underrepresented categories. Talk to me a little bit about that. Why is that important, and how are you involved in furthering that progress?
Yeah. So with my co-founder's former experience, he noticed there were two things that were missing, that he felt strongly about, and that I have joined that crusade, I guess. One was that the venture community, the private equity community, is very exclusive. It has been very exclusive in the past. You had to have a certain pedigree or a certain education, or you had to be a certain type. Very few people could break into that industry. And so it was very exclusive. Another thing that we saw was that there wasn't a lot of data surrounding it. So you would give your money, a large sum of money, to venture capitalists, and they would take that money, and you would see the results that you would see, and the performance that you would see was based on a very small number of details. And so when we set out to do Assure, we realized that this was an opportunity to really change the ecosystem. If we had a fast, affordable, transparent way of all-inclusive way of doing these vehicles, more founders could get funded, and it could open up the ecosystem to new types of investors or new people that can participate. And we have really seen that over time. When we first got started, the people that knew what an SPV were funds that were using the attorneys, and it was very, very high cost. It was upwards of $100,000 to do an SPV when we got started, and we decreased that cost by 90%. And so by creating a fast, affordable, flexible product that only needs to be, it's not the same as a VC fund, as we mentioned before. You have different activity, and whenever you pull back the scale, you take out all the activity that is not needed, the financials that are not needed because there's no activity. You end up creating a product that is affordable and that more people can use. So founders getting more funding, having more opportunities for funding. With this, you can raise small sizes of money. So we have the smallest raise size that we've had at SPV was a $6,000 SPV. And then the highest has been a couple $100,000 or $100 million SPV. So very flexible, can be used for small deals, large deals, but it really helps those founders that just need a little bit of money, because lots of times those big VC funds, they don't want to put in small checks. They don't want to put in little amounts. So this is really a good tool for, angels or friends and family rounds and seed rounds to put in a smaller amount of money into those founders. So it helps the founders in that way. On the other side, SPVs allow investors more investors to participate. So typically the VC fund structure, you have to have a large check size put into the fund. Investors now can put a lot of different smaller check sizes, and they just need to be an accredited investor. And so if they have that aspect of it, they're able to participate. And the last thing that we have done is we've created a smoother process. It used to be very complex, everything very manual, banking manual, all the signing manual, the checks would be sent in to us when we first got started. Everything is in a platform, a smooth process. It makes it a lot easier for people to be able to understand what's happening and be able to they don't have to do all this work in order to be able to figure out the process. So.
Very cool. And just so that I can understand this a bit better and some of our listeners, from an investor perspective, it definitely sounds like a great tool to invest in something you care about without writing a massive check. But as an investor, how do you know what you're investing in? Does each SPV have a designated purpose or company? As an investor, where do you know where that money's going?
Yes. So you are investing in the asset directly. So you're going into the company or the wine or the art or the oil and gas field that so there's all these different assets, and you are understanding and knowing what you're going into. Now, there is, most of our clients are organizers. They have the relationship between the asset and the investor. And so they do the due diligence. And so that's how investors know which thing to invest in, is by, trusting that organizer of that deal. Now, the other thing that I want to mention here really quickly is that I was just talking to one of my employees who actually happens to be a founder of a high net worth women's group. And she was listening to one of our Assure Structured live events earlier, and we were talking about how to become an organizer, how to do these SPVs. And she was out there and she just said, I can do this. I have the relationships. I can do this. And Assure's making it simple for people to be able to invest into it. So she has the relationship. She does the due diligence on the investment, and then she has the investment with the relationship with investors as well. And so then you have that combination, and it makes it so, that investors, have to feel comfortable, of course, but they have the chance to feel comfortable with each investment and to grow their portfolio based on their interest or their desires. A lot of, her desire is female founded companies. So that's what she's going to focus on, is finding those female founded companies and investing on those. We have a client that, a large platform that is pretty well known, invests in all, the investments are all into the LGBTQ community. And last year he did 550 of these. And this year he's doing around 800. So these are, this vehicle, this tool that we have, that we do this work for, is used to invest into all different types of groups.
Very cool. So correct me if I'm wrong. I'm going to try and break this down again. An SPV, someone will create this, so they'll become an organizer. And it's almost like picking companies in a mutual fund. They'll designate kind of where the money's going to go, and then it's up to that investor to look into that SPV and see what they're investing in, where that money's going to go within that SPV.
Let me break it down just a little bit.
Correct me.
Okay. So typically the person that has the relationships will do the due diligence on that asset. And then they'll send out to their network of investors, they'll send out a list of questions that usually the investors ask. They'll send out the slide deck. They'll send out any information that their investors will need to make a decision. Then they have typically some kind of demo day or some kind of meeting with that investor to have that personal relationship to understand what the investment is. So the work for the investor when it comes to the SPVs is understanding what they invest in by being involved in reading the due diligence information, by attending the meetings before, and then they have the ability to choose, yes, I want to invest, or skip it. They don't have to invest in every investment that that organizer or syndicate or angel group is investing in.
Okay, cool. That's very helpful. And how does this help founders? I guess one end of this is it's a vehicle for investors to put their money into causes that they believe in. From the CEO, the business owner perspective, how can they utilize these tools to get fundraising for their companies?
So I guess the first way is that this is a tool that wasn't there a couple years ago. It wasn't. Most companies would not be able to get the funding that they're able to get today because of the cost, those type of things. So there's more people, more accredited investors, more people that are doing these type of deals. So there's more money out there that is looking to be activated. And so more founders are going to be able to get funding that way. The other thing is you could do the founders could do an SPV themselves. So we have an accelerator with our business called Boom Startup. And Boom Startup's purpose is to cultivate those companies to be ready for investment. And I'll tell you, my managing director, Tara Spalding, she's working with a group right now of six companies, and she's pretty hard on them. She makes them do the work in order to be able to be ready to be funded, because she's going to put her name, a stamp on them, and have investors come in and look at those companies. So many of those founders also, we also make those founders go and do the work of trying to find investors themselves as well. So you have the founders that are doing that work to find investors. You have the cultivating from Boom Startup, and then it comes down to the investment time. They can run an SPV themselves, friends and family. We guide them through that with Boom Startup, and we have a syndicate called Assure Syndicates. We guide them through that, so they can also use that tool themselves. So for founders, more founders are having the ability to get funding into their round through this tool, and through the ability to have so many more people in the ecosystem that are looking for deals and investments and that type of thing. So.
Very cool. That's very helpful. And from a founder's perspective, just trying to help the founders here. Obviously, you've got this accelerator program that teaches business owners how to secure funding by getting their businesses ready for acquisition, for pitching to investors, things of that nature. And obviously, I'm sure you cover a whole lot more than you can do in a few minutes on this podcast in that accelerator program. But what would you say are some keys that founders need to have in place before they start seeking investment and pitching investors on their company? What are some key factors?
They definitely have to have the financial model. They have to have that financial model. They have to have a product that is viable, that the market needs. If you don't have those two things are key. If you don't have those two things, you really can't progress. And so she really works with them to figure out if they do have that. If they do have that aspect, then she accepts them into the program to really refine those skills and refine the pitch, the deck, the financial model, and their go-to-market strategy. So those are the things that you really have to have in order to be able to to secure funding for investors to feel comfortable.
And is there a point in a company where seeking investment is even within the realm of possibility? For example, can startups that are pre-revenue and with like an idea and no sales start looking at investors, or what kind of companies are investors most interested in now?
So the ecosystem, of course, has changed quite a bit in the past 8 months or so. So you need to now have more traction. You need to be having some revenue. Very few, mostly friends and family will invest into the ideas. You have to have something and be having seen something in order for investors to really to look at that. Valuations have changed in the last 8 to 9 months. They have come down. They were kind of at a level that was at some points unrealistic, but they've come to a level that is, everything balances out. Whenever you have an adjustment like this, things balance out to where they should be, and so those are the things that have changed. And if you don't have, again, going back to those couple core things, if you don't have a product market fit and a pathway to revenue, then it's harder to get that funding.
Right. That makes a lot of sense. So talk to me a little bit about solutions that you guys have to offer both investors and founders. I know we just mentioned a couple of them briefly, but how can founders and investors, benefit from what it is that you guys are doing?
Okay. So I talked a lot about Boom Startup, so I'll talk a little bit about Assure Syndicates. Assure Syndicates, it match makes the founder with an investor. So he really focuses on more of a little bit later stage, so Series Seed or Series A, and some Bs. So he finds the companies and then goes out in his network and finds the investors that would be interested in those companies and presents those companies to those investors. He also helps the founders there as well be ready, but not in the same way that Boom Startup does. Boom Startup really is a rigorous program, 12-week rigorous program to get those founders quite ready. And it's mostly all, pre-revenue or seed. So we have that program there. We have Land and Age that is our managing director. The other thing is we do this to help the ecosystem, to educate the ecosystem on this tool, this SPV tool, and to also give back to the community. And in turn, at some point, we're hoping that they'll do an SPV. And Landon uses the SPVs for the investment for the syndicates. So he match makes and gets those founders and investors together and has that investment. He also does handheld deals where he'll handhold the investors through the process. If they have an investment that they found, a company that they found or an asset that they found, he'll handhold them through the process and guide them through the process of an SPV so that they can eventually lead some of these deals themselves. The last thing that he does is he does a founder-led SPV. He'll help the founders to be able to lead their own SPV and teach them how to do that. So that's Assure Syndicates and Boom Startup. And then we have Assure Structured Live. Assure Structured Live is it was started on the premise of being able to educate the ecosystem about SPVs. And so we are sharing our expertise as the leading SPV provider to the ecosystem to help educate more people so that they can do this as well, to invest into more founders and underrepresented founders, those type of groups. So we have Assure Structured Live, which is a program a conference that we hold quarterly, and it has about 12 different modules of all information around special purpose vehicles, taxes, the fund documents, the pro rata rights terms, different terms, different things that you can do with these special purpose vehicles. We have that. That is also something that is free to the ecosystem. Again, we want to educate and elevate everyone that is interested in investing in these type of assets, or that is interested in getting investment dollars. And I think those are the
Very
core.
Cool. And yeah. I mean, that's a lot. You've got a solution for investors. You've got a solution for founders who are looking for investment. And you've got a solution for people who want to just learn more, get educated, and eventually enter one of those two categories, I'm assuming. So I will drop all of those links in the show notes for anyone interested in taking any of those three paths. But Katie, final question here. It sounds like you're pretty rooted into the investment scene and also the founder scene. You coordinate a lot between the two groups. What is kind of your industry secret, your ace in the hole for founders who are seeking investment? Is there one specific thing that investors are looking at in companies that you think founders should focus on if they're going to be successful in securing investment? You could take a minute here. Don't rush yourself.
Yeah, one specific thing that's kind of hard. I'm gonna say that the one specific thing is the founder. I think they are investing into the founder, and that founder has to be committed, and they have to show that commitment by their preparation and their execution. And I think as a founder myself, it's not a straight path. It's not an easy path. It doesn't. All the answers are not right there for you, but if you have to have grit. You have to have grit and execute. And you can't, when you fall down, you can't go. There's nobody to run to for help. You have to be that person. You have to know what you're doing. You have to be able to really have the grit to survive and to be a survivor and to make the business work. That's what they're looking for. Ultimately, if you have the numbers, the go-to-market strategy, your deck all in place. Ultimately, it's going to come down to who you are as a founder. And that's what's going to be.
That's such a good answer. That's such a good answer. I've never been on either side yet, but I watch a lot of Shark Tank, and you can tell the people, the entrepreneurs, the leaders who win and those that don't. So I love your answer. Katie, where is the best place for people listening to this podcast to get in touch with you and your co-founder and follow your journey and learn more?
Yes, please contact us at assure.co. We have team members that will pass on the message to us. We're happy to take questions, and we're both also available on LinkedIn, and love to meet people there and exchange information and ideas there. So, thank you so much for having me, Jay.
Cool. Thank you so much, Katie. This was a blast. If you're listening to this, go check out Assure online. Link's going to be here in the show notes. And Katie, thank you for your time. I learned a lot. I had never heard about SPVs. So I appreciate you not only teaching me, but teaching our listeners a little bit today. And hope you enjoyed the show. Katie, pleasure to meet you. And we'll see you in the next episode of Mentors Collective.
Okay. Sounds good. Thank you.